everyone. Here we are again for episode 6 of the Nona Sportscast presented by 407 Printing. I am here today with someone that people probably thought that will never get together in the room, but it is somebody that I respect very much. It's somebody that we look up to, and I think I was just telling them before we go live that we need to get him and leaders like this in soccer exposed to situations like that because with his experience, uh, we all can learn a lot from. And I think it's an honor for me that he took my call and he accepted my invitation. I'm here with the man himself, Hue Menzies from FKK and US Club Soccer. So thank you very much, Hugh, for being here with us.
Fabio, it's a pleasure. Obviously, when I got your text, you started out by saying we have the same thoughts, and sitting here with you for the last 30 minutes, I realized we do have the same thoughts, and we want to give back to the game because that's the important thing. Because the game has been good for me, and it's been good for our community, but we still have a lot more work to do. But it's good to know that you're in the same mindset of one trying to give back, and this is a great opportunity to do that.
So great. This is before we start and talking, and there's a lot of people that came here already. Some important people in the soccer um, circle here in Central Florida. But I want you to know, Hugh, that this microphone is open for you at any time.
Hmm.
I think that if leaders like ourselves want running the biggest clubs in Orlando, we have a platform like this. We can share, we can help each other, and we can compete. There's
Oh
nothing
yeah,
wrong with us
love
competing and making fun
competition. Makes
and,
us healthy.
and make fun of each other after we beat
Yeah,
each other, whatever the
yeah.
case may be. But I want you to know that this microphone is open for you at any time. So if you wanna broadcast something, if you want to say something,
Sure.
the doors here at Nona
That's
Soccer and
good.
Nona Sports, it's open for you.
Yeah,
So
me missing training to do this is very important. So you get my undivided attention for sure.
very nice. So I'm gonna pick your brain. So before we start, why don't you tell us, Hugh, who is this guy from Jamaica that it's been in the U.S. for the last 40 years, coaching soccer, playing soccer? What can you tell us about Hugh?
Well, I was originally born in London, England. So back then they had a program called the Windrush program, which in Jamaica, if you had any type of education, they'll because of the after the World War II, they were trying to rebuild England back. So they looked out to their colonized islands. So my parents decided because they were educated, they went over to England in the early '60s, and then I was conceived, and then they ended up splitting up, and my mom decided to come back home in '68. So I went back home as a kid, and then got entrenched in the culture, and I call myself Jamaican because that's all I knew. Grew up with that mentality, and you know, then we had a political warfare. I grew up in I wouldn't say the ghettos of Jamaica, but it was around the area of it. We play football, which football is a poor man's sport in most of the other countries. And so I was entrenched in the football. I wasn't that great of a player in Jamaica. I was more of a cricket player, a better cricket player. And then mom said she's gonna move. We need to move because of the political warfare. A couple of my friends died and through it, and she was concerned that I was gonna get caught up with it. And I was 16 at the time, and we already had a green card because my aunts and stuff were already here, migrated, so we got it. And so she's just like, "Hey, we're gonna make the move." And I was sent first, so I came here by myself. So it was kind of a eye opener in New York, and then after that, my mom came up and ended up in Texas, and I went to high school in Texas. And mom got kind of sick, and then she went back home because we didn't have anybody to kind of take care of her. So I lived by myself in Texas at 16, 17, and I played 1 year high school, and I loved it because no soccer is the thing here, and I'm decent. 'Cause I wasn't good back home. I played on some good teams in Jamaica. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't that type of player. And then I built some confidence, and then told me I can get scholarships and stuff to go to school, which was important for my mom. And I got heavily involved into soccer playing, and I lucked out actually. They're one of the top club teams back then. You only had like teams; it wasn't more club. A U19 McGuire Cup team was practicing right across the street from my apartment. So I just walk over there and I say, "Hey, I want to play," and they brought me in and they took me in. The guy was like my father, and my mother at the same time. And didn't really tell him I was by myself till probably 3 months in. You realize I was like, I couldn't get into school, and then he helped me get into a private school, and they took me in, and he had somebody pick me up every day, take me to school. And 1981, they won their first state title, which I won it. As in, did well, scored some big goals for them, and they haven't won it since. We're the only one. So we had our 40-year reunion last year, and it was pandemic, but so we had a Zoom. I didn't even recognize nobody. Everybody's like 200 pounds more and bald headed and everything, but still, coach was there, and it was good to hear him, and it was emotional because at that time we were all just a bunch of misfits, but when we came together, we got it done, and they haven't done it since. So it's a little bit of a milestone, but it did propel me to, as Texas high school player of the year, and then went to college and recruited, and I didn't go to the college that I wanted to go to because at the time they didn't have the funds for me; they were waiting. And then I got a cousin that came over, and he went to a small school in West Texas, and I just signed him a letter of intent and went. And then after 2 days after, the other school came back and said, "Hey, here's your scholarship," and I'm like, but anyway, I enjoyed it. I got drafted out of that school too, and I got a finance degree, and I did fairly well in college playing soccer, and I didn't know that many people were playing at the time. I was like, wow, this is actually big in America. And so I took advantage of it to get my education, and so I kind of used the game, and then I got drafted. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know it was. You have confidence in yourself when you play, but you didn't think you're at that level to be a pro because growing up, you look at pros as pros. You know what I mean? And then I got put in that environment in Houston, and I played a little bit. And mom came up, and she was struggling financially and health wise, and we weren't making much money then. I decided to go back, try to get back into school, and I ended up going to get my grad school, and did got an MBA, and I worked in the city, New York City, and I'm able to help her. So I kind of took a sidestep of soccer then, and then about 5, 6 years in, I realized my call, was to help kids because I got helped. My coach kind of was like my father and my mother. I mean, major impact on me, and I felt like I was just making money for a company, and it was going back in circling back into the GMP and all that stuff, and I just felt like I wasn't making that impact that I wanted to make, and I cold turkey just decided I'm gonna go teach, and and then they told me how much money I was gonna make. I was like, oh Lord. So my family disowned me for a while because education, and they came up to see my office in New York and thought it was I made it, and just didn't was my call, and so I took a little backseat. That became a math teacher and coached high school in West Texas because I went to school there, and I'd helped some kids in the area when I was younger, and one of the parents there, he became a school superintendent. So he always wanted me to, felt I made an impact on his own son. So he always like, you gotta come coach, you gotta come coach. So he was always in my ear at the same time. And but I went back, and to be honest, I have no regrets because I felt like I've kind of started to do my call. And while I was there, it's more of a train track type thing. You got the poor people here, the rich people on this side of the tracks, and they were trying to change the boundaries of the school, because West Texas football is massive, so you need some of those kids to be part of that. So it was a good time for us to be more diverse, and which was more comfortable for me coming in. And then I was the soccer coach, and I'm a big educator, so I was big on you getting your education, going to college. So that was unheard of in the West Texas, more Latin communities. And I made a big difference. We went to regionals, we started getting kids into college, and then University of Texas um, came calling for me to help them coach girls. I was like, whoa, no, I mean, I don't know if I coach girls at the time. And I went and did a camp, and there was a kid there. She played for Texas. I was just amazed. The girl was like her work ethic, or how she played. She's now the head scout for U.S. Soccer, Katie Cole. And I was like, girls can really play. I mean, and listen, that was another thing that really intrigued me with girls soccer, and they actually listened. And so I took the job there and moved to Austin, and we didn't do as well. And head coach got fired, and Chris Petroselli came in from Notre Dame, and I felt like I just was more committed to Lang. That was my head coach, and I didn't think staying there would be a good, relationship with him. So I decided to coach club in the area, and I ended up starting a club called big club now called Lone Star, and and then mom got sick again, and I decided to make the move here to Orlando, and she was living here, and I started out at CFU, which was more of a recreational based club, and was, to be honest, just shocking at the time. It's just teens within a club. It looked like they're just a hub, people with different uniforms, different names, and it wasn't a club. So I probably was the most hated person in Central Florida at the time, because I was changing things like, you can't train here, you got to train at a certain fields, because I wanted to see my club. We can move a kid from one field to the next real easy, but they just didn't understand that whole dynamics of a proper club, right? So, and I was, back then, the some of these leagues, the DA started to form, and all that. So I came from an environment where it was very mutual competitive. Now it's a rec environment, and I didn't know any different. I wanted to build it up, and so we did a lot of work here. Joe Avalon had a little group called Craze Crush. I thought they were part of my club. I drove up to St. Kelly, Central Winds, and they were training on the bottom fields. So I stopped there because the first stop, and then I was like, no, we're not CFU. I said, you're training on these fields? I thought we had the fields, and I saw them training, and they were doing an unbelievable job with little kids. I was like, because Joe was out there at the time. You had Greg Brick, you had all those guys, and they're soccer guys. So I was like, why this is not part of us? So went back to my board, and I was like, they need to be part of us, because they're on our fields and they actually know what they're doing. You know what I mean? So we actually became CFK, brought them back in, and then we actually propelled the club from there. We brought in East Orange because I thought I wanted a little bit more of a lifestyle base, more Latinos, and kids need to be around that, that learn how to diverse themselves, because that's what's the world they have to deal with. So I felt like East Orange was a great club to merge with, and we did merge, and the club started getting more defined. We're starting to get players and starting to build some proper teams, and it was more of a club. And then we got approached. We got the ECNL girls, and then we got the DA, which we kind of did a little bit of a partnership with Rush at the time, and FSA. Phil Rollins came in and approached us to see if we could create an environment where it funnels through the pro club, and so we did that. And Richard Gray was a big part of on the boys side, and I was more the ECNL was a done deal, and then we worked together, and we got the DA, and so we started that process, and then things just didn't work out, the way we thought it would, and and all three clubs kind of departed away. Well, we didn't really depart. We just I left. We split, and then the community wanted me to stay. So we started over in 2013, and we started CFK again, and we had a tryout at the baseball fields. We couldn't go on the prep other fields because Orlando City had those fields, and so we've come a long way. We've journeyed through it. I've seen the soccer, as we say, football in this area has evolved. Um, I want to say, when I came here, it was more like, Rush was over there, FSA was over there, and so it's more territorial. Nobody really go over to the next side. Um, and then you start building a product, so people start traveling now. And I started hiring people that were involved with soccer in Texas. So it kind of changed the landscape a little bit, made it more competitive in a good way. And then you start winning state titles because the South Florida was really good. It's just pounding everybody. And then now we started to compete with them, and so it was a good evolution. And then now you got clubs like you here, and that has really turned it up because obviously this era was much here at the time, and now it's grown and it's continuing to grow. And you got some stumbling blocks that we need to jump over as a group, to see if we can help propel this game and educate people on the game, because I think they see us on the sidelines as competitive coaches, and we go at each other and they don't know us as people. And I can honestly say I helped a lot of kids, to propel themselves into who they are today, and I also helped our country, because I took my country to the World Cup and still made a major impact. So you feel good about the impact, and you know who you are, and people just don't know who you are. And yes, I mean, you're in a competitive environment, so it does create a little bit of a shadow of the good things that you do. But at the end of the day, if you're true to yourself, you're fine. And then you start picking the people that needs to be in your circle, and you're good.
Yeah, I this is amazing, by the way, that you had we have some things in common. I also came here to the US with 17 years old with by myself, right? So it's it's some stuff that we have in common. Of course, it was 30 years later, so
A
things were probably a little
little
bit
bit more,
easier for
yeah, a
me
little bit easier, man.
than what you went through. But it's interesting to see how and when Orlando City came into town, it was that relationship with FSA back then,
Hmm.
and then you just left that organization and you start over
From
the whole club
scratch.
again.
Yeah, we started from scratch. The fortunate thing is that because they had a DA, we told the boys to actually stay because the DA was a proper league. The girls came over. We didn't really ECNL was there, but it wasn't really established yet. And then some of the girls came over, and then we just built from there. And no, we are who we are today from since 2013. It's crazy how it's 9 years ago. It's almost 10 years now, but we we've survived it. We stayed true to who we are. And obviously my connections, and a lot of the time when I played, a lot of those guys are on boards, and they're friends of mine's, and even some of those guys played for me, and I helped them, and so it helps, the circle, and they keep reaping me in, rolling me in, and say, hey, you need to be more of an impact. And like I said, they got me involved with the U.S. club board, and it's been rewarding, to be honest with you, because I see the other side of the game, right? And it gives me a lot more humility, because sometimes you get caught up in your own world, right? But now, you have a U.S. club. a little over 500,000 kids we got to deal with and we got to make decisions on. And you gotta look at the whole scope of things. So I'm seeing what happens in Seattle. I see what happens in California. Germans here, and we comparing where we are, and we got ways to go. You know what I mean? But like you said, it's got to be collective effort.
What do you think here is the biggest obstacle? And of course we can get into the national level later in the conversation. But here, for example, in Central Florida, what do you think what is holding us for being? Because let's face it, we have over 10 clubs within 30 miles here, right? And then you have three clubs competing at the highest levels.
You're hitting the problem, the
Yeah,
saturation.
yeah.
It's
So
it's saturated, and I think people, sometimes it hurts you when you have too much of a football culture in your area because everybody think they know they can go off and start a little club and they know the game and as much as I do, it's not just the soccer is this much, it's everything that's around it to build a club.
yeah,
So you think that's what it is. You think that's what it is. It's not. The side, other things are important, and that's where they fail. And then they start a little club there, then stuff just starts and it's just so saturated, and they just need to trust the clubs and say, all right, I'm in Lake Nona, I'm staying in Lake Nona, I'm gonna play for Lake Nona. I'm in my part of the world, and they play for us, Rush, and you stick with where you are. You don't have to travel, you don't have to. But then comes the league caveat, that we're in different leagues. I'm driving past clubs that I should be playing against, and we try to create events that we can play each other. But it's a problem, and it's a national problem because we're having the same issues everywhere else too. The
really.
saturation, and we need to really, really start leagues starting to say, hey, you know what? You can't start a club. You need to go to that club. You need to go to that club. You need to, and we have less things to deal with because now you got so many clubs here. It doesn't mean anything. They don't play for the badge anymore. You know what I mean? And that's we growing up. That's what you. I mean, I played for my local team in my area. That's all I knew. I thought they were the World Cup beater. You know what I mean? And I'll do anything. And right to this day, I still give back to my club because
Yeah,
that's you
we
know
I tell people all the time when I started Nona Soccer
yeah
5 years ago, and you and I had conversations in the past. I say I'm old school. I thought it was super cool that we play Hunters Creek, we play um, Winter Park, we
hmm
play Rush, we play
yeah
FKK, and then we kind of stay there and respect and represent. I don't
hmm
need to get a kid from Oviedo to
hmm
come to
hmm
come to
hmm
to Lake
hmm
Nona unless like I have a better product than
yeah
you.
yeah yeah
Then they're gonna make that, but it shouldn't be. It
yeah
should be
yeah
like I'm growing up and I have my community
hmm
club that I
hmm
that I represent, and I do that. And now
leagues
people
leagues
leagues
and
and
scholarships and who goes where to what school, that
and
team
then franchises,
and
right? you have
franchises.
you have teams from Europe coming in here with a guy. There's a couple
Yeah,
that are coming in here with an European jersey, and it's a millionaire somewhere that
yeah.
just say, "Hey, I'm going to invest in soccer in the U.S." And then
Yeah.
there's no background on the coaches that they have, and then what, right? What are we
It's
doing for?
jersey purchasing. That's all that is to me. I remember we had a partnership with Tottenham, and the first thing it was at Excel. Actually, they came in and they asked me to come over. Karen invited me over to come because they were bringing Tottenham in, and the guy approached me. And I said, "Let me tell you something. I ain't buying uniforms. Just want you to know right up front, because I've seen so many clubs in Dallas and Texas who used to just buy uniforms and they get nothing out of it. And we want if we're going to do a partnership, it's a partnership. It's a relationship where we have kids go over there, we have staff go over there, educate, and come back here, and through Nike and all that. So Nike kind of brought us together, but then it eventually got to that point. They asked me, "Oh, you need to buy a jersey," and I said, "I told you from day one, I'm not buying jerseys." I want a relationship. I want to learn. I want to." your staff, and they did their staff was really good though. I mean, they had an internationals division, and they sends coaches all over, and they brought guys over that were really good, to be honest with you. So we learned a lot from them, but at the end of the day, you're not gonna change the way we build our club. Yeah, it's a different market, it's a different environment. So I'd rather go to the guy next to me and say, "Hey, let's come together and do something," because they know the trenches in the market that we're in. But yeah, it's such of an opportunity here, a business opportunity that gets caught up in the middle of everything, and the Europeans, they come over with their clubs and try to do that. And end of the day, we may not have all the answers, but we know what our community needs a bit more.
And do you think, Hugh, like I'm noticing that, and here in Lake Nona, I'm finding it more and more that the community aspect it's more important than any jersey that comes in here.
I would totally agree. And
And I had the opportunity also to, I'm sure you know, uh, with clubs from all over, including local clubs, the
mhm,
pro club here, and say, hey, the first thing we're going to do is change everything. I have my partner. I have Nemours, who's
mhm,
a hospital in my community that is helping us, that is doing stuff with us since the beginning.
mhm.
Oh no, you're gonna have to change it to our hospital. Oh, like
Uh,
we are Nona, right? We are.
uh,
If I come to you, I think it's disrespectful for me to come to you and say, "Hugh, let's work together." But after all the work that you've done, everything that you've created, let's turn FKK orange. You're gonna look at me like
mhm,
we
mhm.
can work together, like
Oh
we're
yeah,
doing
yeah, oh,
here.
yeah, oh, yeah.
But like I need to respect the colors. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
those little things. I think it's a. But as much as part of the parents buy that program, I think the majority of it are learning, because one of the things that I say to my I met with some investors from Brazil one time, and I said the first thing we need to do is to respect our clients, right? To respect our community. We're not just going to tell them because soccer wasn't the main sport in this country that we're going to say, oh, we are Real Madrid, or we are Barcelona, or we are whoever. And then all of the problems are fixed, because we know, you and I both know, it's not the case, right? So you need to make sure that you have that community brand. And then, like you said, if they're coming in to add to it, great. Teach us, show us, partner with us, bring kids in so we can see the difference. Let us take our kids out so we can see those difference. But don't come in here just for the dollar bill,
yeah.
because I'm not going to respect you for
We're
that.
we're not stupid. Let me just make it. We're not stupid. I mean, there's a lot of sweat and time we put into our product, and we're gonna protect it. And that's what I like. The last person that came here, I told them that. We're not here to just hand it over, because that's not what we're about. And you shouldn't have that attitude. Yeah, it's more of an enhancement, more of doing things to polish us up a little bit better. But we're willing to work with you. But like you said, don't come here and tell us we got to do this and do that. And it's not. That's not where our identity is.
And this time of the year, Hugh, like it's a question mark for everybody, for parents, for like I'm going to tell you, forget that I started on a soccer. Right? I'm
Mhm.
talking to you as a father. I have both of my kids gotten invited to go try out over Orlando City, and
Mhm.
and people started talking, and then you have the league, and then the other one has the league, and then we're competing at the national level. How do you deal with this? Like if you look at me as a parent, and please give me light, because I need to help, and you have a lot more experience than I do, but we need to help the parents make an educated decision and see what is this crazy idea of what is right. Please explain. Like this is the worst time of the year, from spring break to tryouts. It's
You
like,
know, it's been a lot. It's been a lot of years and a lot of times of being in the same situation. Because when it's tryout time, right? And people are talking and looking, and things might not go well with them in their club, and obviously they're thinking of leaving, and instead of saying, hey, we might have to go to the second team and try to build ourselves back up. So people are looking for the easier way of things, and it's unfortunate that people think like that, but we live in the world that we live in right now. But as a parent coming in, I'm gonna say, hey, trust in the system. We're gonna be honest with your kid. I mean, we're gonna be very honest with them, and if you belong in this group versus that group, you gotta trust us. Um, and you may think the grass is greener, but it's gonna end up costing you, whether it's further away. I mean, our economy now is struggling a little bit with gas and everything. So you're gonna have to add that component. You get away from your family because now you're splitting yourself away. So there's some things that becomes a hinder. Do you want to go through that, or you just want to stay with the club, stay with your routine, trust the process, help your kids understand that they got to go through some adversity, and you got to trust the system. And it's like you were asking me though, like, oh man, I mean, it doesn't bother me anymore. It really doesn't. People get all grand about, it's tryouts and this and that might leave. And I'm like, we got a product here. If people want to stay here, they stay here. If they don't, then they have a free will to go somewhere else. But trust the system. Just trust it. And that's what I can tell somebody. I tell a parent 2 days ago. They got selected to go to Orlando City, and they're trying to figure out if that's the route. And I said, well, if your kid wants to be a pro, go. I mean, go. I mean, we're not a pro club, but at the youth level, is it going to be different? Is it going to be more competitive? Those are the questions you got to ask. Is it going to propel your kid into what you thinking he wants to be? Those are the questions you got to ask yourself, and is that situation gonna give it to you, or this situation is gonna give it to you? So it's because I honestly think that the staff of a pro environment in this country, we got clubs that are just as good staff. It's no, I mean, I've been around the rest of the country. There's guys that are really good coaches that just love their environment and they're in their community. They're not moving, and they're really good teachers, more or less than coaches, where the pro clubs don't have that. So, and they may have better coaches and better resources at some places, but I think some people do put things on a pedestal, and at the end of the day, a lot of those kids, they don't make it through the process. They end up going to the same school my kid's going to. They're sitting on the bench, my kid is playing. So it is what it is. But at the end of the day, I don't want to lose sleep over it, to be honest with you, because I think all these young DOCs, they do lose sleep. I got guys in my club. You were gonna lose this kid. I mean, we got to move on, and that's the attitude I take. Sometimes I used to be like just like everybody else and worry, and no, I don't. I really don't worry about it. But if you live true to yourself, you believe in your product, you believe in the group, the people around you, and you believe in what you're doing, then you know that's the most you can ask.
Mhm.
But you just hope that people realize, a lot of them will go around to different clubs and then they come back, they circle back in. The kid has a car key now, so the kid's making some decisions like, I'm going to hang out with my buddies I go to school with.
Yeah.
So that all that for nothing. You know what I mean? So there's some lessons there to be learned, and the longer we're around, the more we're gonna see those.
One thing I respect about your club here, and talking to you for the last hour or so before we went in, I'm starting to realize that we have a lot more in common
Hmm.
that I thought,
Hmm.
honestly. And talking about the is it better, Lo? Yeah. So talking about the your club, what I like is that You talk a lot about education.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of the few clubs here that besides Nona that we hear a lot about. It's talking about college as opposed to the pro level.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that the game changed so much here in our neighborhood, right? And when it comes to our backyard, why is everybody talking about being a pro? You've been in the business 40 years. How many kids
Less than
went?
a percent.
How many kids went through your program?
Yeah, a bunch.
You probably had 30,000 kids go through
Mm-hmm.
your hands,
Over
right? In
there.
the last 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
How many have you really made it to be a pro?
Pinch, pinch, and
Exactly.
you know it's the problem is the parents know the answer, but they think that little Johnny is gonna be the pro, and because little Johnny is watching TV, and I get it, I get you don't want to kill your kids' dreams and everything, but my biggest thing is that continue the education route, and if pro comes in, it comes in.
It's a profit. That's
Yeah,
what I said.
it's gravy. So but you got to continue this track, because at the end of the day, um, it's not what happens now; it's what happened then. And some people just don't understand what the delta is between now and then, and they think their kid needs to be there and there and there. And at the end of the day, is the kid, man, the development of the kid. And I was talking to Leo about, some kids have it; they have it. You know what I mean? We have a kid in our club, and he's got it. It's one kid out of all the kids we have in our club, and I can say, honestly, because he's so humble. Number one,
Mhm.
his character is spot on, and number two, his parents are humble. You know what I mean about things, and number three, I think they get it. You know what I mean? And if it happens, it happens. And they want it for their kid, but the kid's so humble about things, and that's why he just continues to excel with the game.
And with your experience, with my experience, we know who they are.
Oh yeah, you see it.
And even then, we can control,
It's tough,
right?
but you're trying to convince people, right?
Oh my God.
Hmm.
So, one of the biggest things in soccer is that, let's say, for example, this kid,
Yeah,
I don't know his age,
yeah.
but let's say, for example, he's 15 years old and he's a striker,
Hmm.
for example. And then he is the best striker forever. And then when it comes down to it, they need a defender.
Hmm.
And that time goes by. And then that kid doesn't make it. What control do we have? Right? Because I was there. I was in that environment.
Yeah.
I was good, but never at the,
Uh,
uh,
hmm.
like you're saying,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we were in that
yeah,
environment.
yeah, yeah.
And then I played with guys that I'm saying, oh my God, this person, it's the best player that I've ever seen in my whole life. And then next thing you see, it's the right back
Oh
making
yeah.
to Real Madrid. I say, how?
Hmm.
Right? And there was a player that played with us that ended up playing the World Cup, and he was a good player, decent player. But he was when you stack him up, our whole team,
Hmm.
it was 6, 7 guys in front of him, and he made it to Real Madrid, and it's just the way that the game evolves. And now I have little clubs. They just open today, boom, and they say, "I'm gonna make you a pro."
Yeah, because we're affiliated.
Because we're affiliated, or because we wear a purple jersey, or because we wear a red jersey. Or come on, it was like, so does it frustrate you, Hill, that people are taking our beautiful game and our community into that route? Or before you answer, or it's funny to you? Because I'm starting to look at it, step back and say, huh,
There's something, Fabio. You will lose sleep if you worry about these things. I will tell you that right now. And I tell you, my staff have gotten more committed to their team because if issues come to me, I just say leave. So I will kill your team because I don't care. Level kid, what if parents don't like what we do? There's other things you can go do. And so they're more accountable for their teams now. They deal with their issues. We have protocols set in place. By the time it gets to me, it's an issue, right? And you hope it doesn't. Well, but I'm at this point now in my career. I've been doing this for a while, and I see a lot of young coaches and young DOCs that are going through the rigmarole, losing here and all this, and you get caught up with that. And it's people and people making decisions that they got no earthly idea what they're doing. You know what I mean? And you just got to stick with what you believe in, what you've seen based on your experience. Because I mean, I have a kid now playing for the Pride. She's played 90 minutes for them the last two games, and she was my ace midfielder. I mean, and she's playing right back now, in the pros. And they changed her in college and all that. And I still think she should be in the midfield. But Amanda sees her outside back, and but that's not going to change it. But that kid, you could tell, was going to be there. You know what I mean? So we see these kids, we see them, we see the profile. You kind of have an idea, but people still won't trust you. And if you're not honest with them and they can't handle it, then that's bad on them. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of them don't see, because you don't want to bust kids' dreams, but at the end of the day, let's take this route, and if that comes, it comes. The kid that I'm talking about in my club, he needs to go the route. You know what I mean? You see it because you've seen the profile, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of these parents don't see it, so they just need to continue on the route. And then if the pro comes, because that's what happened to me as a player. I had no intention of playing pro, but they drafted me. I was like, I didn't even know I got drafted, because back then they didn't have all this. You get your Dre on TV and all this. You get a phone call. And the coach called me in the office. Houston took you in the 15th pick in the first round. I was like, what? What does that mean? Because I was going off to go work and all that at the time. But it's different now, man. It's the whole social media aspects of it. I mean, they throw their 7-year-old kid up on a freaking Instagram,
Yeah.
juggling 200 times, and they think he's going to be a pro. It's just not. It's just that's not the real world, And so it's very difficult to make an impact at times, especially in the early adolescence. But time will help. Time will help, and I think I message to a lot of these young DOCs, man. Just depend on time, because don't get caught up with a kid leaving you. Oh, if he's leaving my club, oh, yeah, I just spend so much time with him. He's gone. You'd be surprised over there circle the wagon again. You just gotta be humble. You gotta be respectful, professional about it. Kid leaves your club. It is what it is, because they'll come back. They'll come back. 'Cause-
And even if they don't, it's okay too. It's part of
oh,
the it's
yes.
part of business. If you sell ice cream and I don't like your ice cream, I'll go buy it next door. It's
Nah,
okay.
it's okay.
But just don't promise that your ice cream is going to make him slim, right? That's what that's one of those things
That's a
that
good
is,
way. But
that's like, you sell ice cream, I sell ice cream. You like yours or I like mine, fine. Just don't promise what your ice cream can't do, right? You don't have control of that final product. And that's what kind of, it still drives me crazy. I'm one of those young DOCs that it frustrates me on what I read and what I see, and all these promises that are done. And maybe because I haven't seen a full circle yet.
yeah.
You have seen a couple full
Oh yeah.
circles,
I've seen
and
cycles and of players we talk about from U9 to U18. I've seen cycles and over the years, and you after a while you just like, no, come on now. You just like look at a parent and like, and trust me, I can be wrong, but
I had a player. I'm sure you have many of those that he wasn't playing on. He didn't make our first team, so he left and he went to another club to play the first team. So here he was going to play the second team, and then he went to another club to play at their first team over there. Guess what division they play?
lower your
Against
division.
against my second team. But just for the parents have that ability to say, "Oh, my son is the first." if my players leave my first team because they didn't make it and they go play for your first team, it's okay. It's based on the needs that they have because we
Hmm.
can compete at that level.
Hmm.
But you're gonna play the second team here in Nona to go play on the first team at another club just because you want to say that you're on the first team.
Yeah, it's crazy that some of the dynamics of things that people look at, and you shake your head. I've seen some crazy things in my time, but that's one of them. And also they're driving away from their community to go do that.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And
I've
they may
never
be
thought of
paying
that.
more money because they're on the
Never
first
thought
team.
of that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that change, and you spun around and figure you're still in the same league.
And then one year I have a jersey, and next year I have another affiliation,
What's crazy is
and
when they have multiple kids with multiple jerseys in the same house. That is that just that's the crazy part for me.
that's one of the things that I went to. I don't know where I went. It was a kid event, maybe in downtown Orlando one time with it was probably one of the Orlando City functions, and it was it was a U.S. soccer function. Oh, Florida Cup. It was Florida Cup, and I was there with Villar and them over at Florida Cup, and we saw a bunch of kids with the Nona jerseys, and then we saw a bunch of kids with the FKK jerseys, and a bunch of kids of the Rush jerseys, and that's cool. I think
Yeah,
I think that
that's
is
awesome.
that is so cool.
Hmm.
Like of course the smaller clubs. I was there one day. You were there one day. You had
Hmm.
to start over, and
Hmm.
we respect them.
Hmm.
Just that. Let's do that. But then the kids, they need to go in. If it's soccer, if it's something, let me represent my community, right? Let me put
Hmm.
on my jersey. And some of these clubs and franchises, they come in and they one day it's X, Y, and Z from England. The next day is from Spain. The next day is from MLS.
Different flavor, man.
It's
Different
crazy.
day, different flavor, and it's unfortunate that we get crept into this whole dynamics of the business side of things versus the reality of what it is, because it's fictional to me, a lot of that stuff, because I've seen it around it. I've done it too and got caught with it and realized that's not the route. But at the end of the day, the parent has to make a decision for their own individual child, and you hope they make the best decision for their kid, but you just got to live through to yourself as a coach and say, hey, this is what I believe in. This is how we're going to do things. This is what my club stands for. And just stick with that. And if people come and they buy in, they buy in. If they don't, it's okay too. You know what I mean?
And he'll changing the subject a little bit because I know that you and I can probably talk about
Yeah,
this for a long
ever.
time. But uh, you are one of the experts on the girls' side, and what you've built with Crush, right? With FKK it's impressive on the girls' side. What is the biggest difference? If I'm telling you this year, because we are, and today about 25% of our academy is the girls division, and I want to make sure that I grow that not only to have a good balance because that's important too, but I wanted to provide to my community girls the product that you have over in Oviedo, right? Uh, how can what's the biggest difference between developing a girls program and the boys program?
Well, eh, a lot of people look at me like that as a girls person. I think the biggest thing is I try to create a club environment. Now, the girls side, obviously the dynamics is different at the younger age groups. There's more boys versus girls. Sometimes you tend to draw to the more massive, and the talent is more visible at a younger age, but the opportunities for girls are so much more on the as they get older. And as far as colleges, and as there's three times the amount of women female schools playing. Now they have a pro league. Now they have leagues in Europe. So it's creating that environment. um, we got to educate people more and that on the girls side. But I don't treat I don't treat as a coach, I don't treat the gender any different because the top level girl wants to be treated the same way as the top level boy. Obviously, you got to get to that point. Um, and you do have some girls that they eat, sleep, soccer. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it carries over. I think a lot of now the good thing is we try to teach them to keep telling them to watch soccer because a lot of girls don't watch soccer enough, versus boys. So you gotta try to create events so they actually watch games and or go to games or try to bring professional people in within your environment so they can touch and feel. We're fortunate now we have people playing in the league from our club, so that helps too. So but as a young club trying to start a girls program within among your boys program, you gotta give them time. You gotta put time into it. They gotta see the difference. They gotta see you're really trying to help them, versus just trying to. A lot of people gravitate to the boys, right? And it's a culture thing, and it is what it is. But I think once they realize that you're in it for them, and I think they're gonna do what you tell them to do, and girls are creatures of habits too, and if you create a good habit, they'll follow it, and they'll follow it to probably to the T, because sometimes they even overdo themselves. But that's just the nature, right, of the gender, and you can utilize that to your benefit, and that's what I've figured out, that a, a girl commitment and a boy commitment, man, it's hardcore. The girl that's really committed to the game. We right now we have one in our club, a girl that's like, I mean, people, some of the girls don't even associate with her because she's such into the game, and it's probably the extremist, right? And you're trying to reel her back in it now, but the love of the game and the effort she puts in, you just love the kid for it. And there's no different on the boys' side with that. They have the same thing too. And I think once they realize that you see there's not much of a difference, then they'll work for you. Because sometimes people say, "Oh, your coach boys different." No, I don't. I coach a boys team just like I coach a girls team. I don't change it up for nothing. And I think the girls appreciate that more.
Yeah, I like that idea that we coach the same. But we do you see a difference on the parents?
Um, in the initial stage, yes, because they're very
Mhm.
protective. Even the dads are worse, more protective on
Yes,
their
yes.
girls, and it's their little girl, and yeah, there is a more protective environment in there. They're more involved, versus a boy. Um, and you got to use that as your advantage because they're there, so they actually see everything, and they can honestly walk away and say, you know what, I can go to the store and come back.
Mhm.
I can drop my kid off, and it's tough for them to do that until they get to that point, right? And I tell my staff every day that if you're coaching girls, it's a reward when you see a parent drop a kid off and leave and come back. It's a great reward to you because they know that they trust you,
Mhm.
and once you get that trust, then you have the abilities to develop that kid if she really wants it. So young coaches, it's you always have a lot of those parents hang around the fields every time they put their chair up beside you, and back in my old days in Lone Star, we used to put the youngest age group the furthest away from the parents, and they come out with binoculars, and it's kind of funny, but it worked. The independence of girls got better. I mean, they were helping each other out. They're not dependent, and so you're teaching a lot more than the game. And I think when parents realize what you're doing, and then they'll give you the leeway to do what you got to do. But the trust has to happen first, and from the parent, and that kid, once they realize what you're in there for, and girls in really, really a little bit more so than boys that at a young age, when they trust you, they do everything for you, and that's a profile to the gender. You
And
know.
what do you think is the future of the girls? Because we got the numbers on the league. It's like 65% lower this
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah. You know, it's across, and I'm just talking on the U.S. clubs. Some of the numbers are down, just like referees. You know, it's the same thing. We have issues there. Um, Obviously, the pandemic did put a little bit damper into things because, again, parents are more protective of their little girls and getting them outside and getting them sick and all
Do
that.
you think that's the main reason the
That's some
pandemic
of that
was?
is some of
Yeah.
that is definitely, and then we I think what happens is we put boys with girls at that age, and some parents struggle with that. And some parents have no problem with it if they have multiple siblings they have in their household. But some people would love to have a girls' club, and bring their kids out. The girls where we try to market our carefully crush and craze, to get them out there, and then eventually, do what we have to do with the players. But yeah, it's tough on that end because sometimes they want to be just around girls,
Yeah.
where your program has both. You hope that in the school system they don't separate them. They keep them together. But yeah, some people don't want their little girls playing against the boys at that age. Becomes whether they're a little bit more of a problem or whatever. But it's yeah, it's an issue at that young age, and but eventually they realize that you know we start to separate because of our crush craze, which I think.
Do you got any pushback on that by separating them, crush and craze, or
No, because we have a club philosophy that we bring it together. And obviously we do have separate leagues, so it is what it is. We have to do that, but we don't really get much pushback of it. In the beginning we did because when we started back over, remember we told the boys they should stay. And they did. Yeah. So
Mhm.
our boys program started over from scratch, and the girls were a little bit ahead. And now it's kind of reversing a little bit because our girls are not as good as what we used to be. In the era, we're still very good, but we still need to be more competitive in the ECNL division. And but overall, we're still getting kids into college, and at the girls' side, that's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Yeah?
You know.
And what do you see the quality of the game here in Central Florida, Hugh? Do you think it's because we're competing now, and we were there at Western Cup, for example, and I saw your boys there, and Nona and FKK, we're bringing it to them.
Yeah, and obviously, especially in the younger age groups now, where South Florida just has a culture, right?
Hmm.
And you can put 10 kids together, and in 2 weeks you got quite a little group because they got the football in them from day
Yeah,
one. But it's good to see that we're down there competing because I remember when they were trying to put us into groups and brackets, and they called me, the director called me, and the tournament director, and like, hey, I was like, well, I think my tens can go down there and do well, So put them in the top group, and it was received well. So that's the start, and then you go down there and you get the result, right?
yeah.
So,
We didn't get
so
a good result on the tens against you guys, but it was okay.
yeah, but it just shows that we can compete with them down there because they do have how many millions of people down there and various cultures, and they're embedded in the game, and so
And
it's good to see.
that's another thing that drives me nuts. It goes back to okay, you're saying that you're good. Go down there and compete. Let's go.
Oh yeah, no problem.
And then we're at Western Cup, and I only saw two clubs from Central Florida
Yeah,
down there.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
No, we don't. We try to put our players in the most adverse situations because if when you go to that Vista Park, the fields are crap. It's small. The Latinos, the Shakers, and Miami Breakers, and
Yeah,
it can be intimidating. And our kids need to be in that.
they need to see
They need
that
to see that.
absolutely.
They need to be part of that because if you so-called think you're a pro, it gets worse as you go on. I mean, CONCACAF is CONCACAF. Try playing in CONCACAF. It ain't you're in Europe. Oh yeah, we probably win that. No, try travel to Jamaica. We call it the office. You can drive 2 miles away and smell the visitors' locker room. Just to start. All right. You go to they know what hotel you're at. The drums are hitting at 2 a.m. So there is so many dynamics of things that mess mentally that people think you can just go into Honduras and just you're playing at the pitch heat of the day and the grass is high and you got people doing the deal on you. I mean, you know,
That's one of the things here that I say all the time to parents. Losing situations like that, bad refereeing. There are a handful of things. There are a handful of things on these adverse situations, like you said, that we cannot make it. We cannot make it happen in practice. There's nothing you can do in practice that you can simulate a bad call of a referee. Nothing.
mhm.
You can be the most experienced coach. Of course, you can go there and then the kid's gonna laugh at you, coach. That was a
Yeah.
penalty. But with the stress of the game, with the intensity that the game, and if you haven't played, you don't know,
Mhm.
right? So then the parents like, oh, I'm gonna do this because they're gonna have better referee. They're not. The referee gets worse and worse because the game gets faster and faster, and so there's nothing that we can do to make.
Like we can only control what we can control.
Yeah, and
Correct.
then the rest of it, it's playing,
Deal with it, and that's what we
losing.
say.
That
Deal with it.
last yesterday, I mentioned that in the last one, and I think that's going to become my thing now. There's a Portuguese coach in Brazil now that he's talking about winning and losing in the soccer game, because in Brazil they put so much effort on winning. It's like if you lose, you suck.
Age group.
Yeah, there's a coach in the pro division now in Brazil that he got there a month ago, and he's playing every other day, every 2 days. The games, like, it's like boom, 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 and he just got there a month ago, so he played 8 games in 4 weeks, and he couldn't do anything yet. So the fans are already calling his name. It's like, you guys need to understand one thing. At the end of the day, it's a game. The ball may not go in the way you want it. Yesterday we had a fantastic game here. It was 1-1. My U14 boys were playing, and the ball just didn't go in. We tied the game 1-1. And people need to start understanding that losing at U8, U12, U13 is important.
This the earlier you put your kids in adverse situations, the better off they're gonna be. And parents can't handle that. But that's the beauty of our game, right? Of our sports, period. Because I don't think you're gonna put your kid and tell him to go down the street and kick somebody.
Yeah,
You're not gonna do that. But in a game, it's gonna happen, and how you deal with that. And that's life lessons, man. I mean, that's why I think the best thing you can do for your kids and to put them in a youth sports, because they learn the life lessons that they wouldn't learn in their environment.
true.
And like we always say, you tie your boots the same way, right? And my old coach used to say, the closer you get to the goal, the darker it gets. It is what it is. We
That's a
don't
good one.
change that. You know what I
That's a good
mean?
one.
We don't change it because that's what the game gives you back, and you got to deal with it. And that's just things that you don't get in regular life.
I like to think that for my kids, right? For
Mm.
for Lake Nona kids, I had a meeting with. We have a pre-competitive group that is U8 that they started playing, and the parents were going nuts. And I sat down with them one day for a parents meeting, and I said, guys, we live in Lake Nona, right? It's probably one of the richest communities in Central Florida. Our kids, how many of us, of the 14 parents that we had on that group, 12 parents that we had on that group, how many of us had a problem in this winter season that our kids were cold at home? How many of us? They looked at me like, how many of us during the pandemic had a problem having food on the table? Of course, there are people
Mhm,
like that in our
mhm,
community, and we
mhm,
know.
mhm, mhm,
I'm just giving an example, the
mhm.
percentages of it. So it's like, If the kid goes bad in school, it's the teacher's fault, right? It's never
Hmm.
the kid's fault because we have the helicopter parents. Our kids don't lose enough, Hugh. Where's the only controlled environment that we can put a rich kid, or a rich kid is it's not,
Whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
that we can put a Lake Nona kid to be that they're going to lose in a controlled environment? There is none.
There's none.
So if we have to control this, the game or whatever sport it is,
Hmm.
because we're doing basketball now, and basketball is even worse.
I heard.
It's crazy. Um, if we have if the kids don't lose enough, and if we take away losing in sports, what kind of human beings we're gonna
Struggle.
create for the future? And
Struggle.
that's my main lesson. And then at the end of my meeting, and I'm there engaged, and some parents started crying. Fabio, I'm embarrassed. Don't you agree that losing? Of course, I don't want to lose. If I build a team, if I build a team, and at the end of the season they play 40 games and they lost 38 games, it's not no fun.
Fun. Yeah, we get it. Obviously, I try to tell people that there's no other environment where you can even the playing field. We don't. It's socioeconomic doesn't put a part of a play in it. No matter where you're from, who you are, what color you are, whatever. The game just is very equal. You know, but comes with the game. There's some things that comes with it that's gonna hit you in the heart, and you can't get that in life in your environment. There's a kid there might be going through it day in day out, and that's part of them. But you have another kid there that's got all the little roles and every day, and but the game provides the adversity and the bite. Take advantage of it, man. Use the game to do things that you can't create in your own environment.
Do you see a big difference on the? You see a big difference on the new generation here, because probably for you was a little worse than for me, but for me it was pretty bad. My dad wanted me to have adversity. It's my dad created adversaries for me, and now we see these kids that they can't even go outside and put the trash out, for example.
Times have changed, our whole environment has changed. You got a lot of these pedophiles and all that. People are worried about that, but at the end of the day, you still got to figure out how you're going to put your kid in an environment where they're going to learn how to persevere and work with other people. And I think sports is the advocate of it.
Yeah, I have a funny story about when I was growing up. I had a I had a tryout at Palmeiras, one of the academies in Sao Paulo, and I used to live like in the downtown area. And my dad used to own his own business, and it was a small business. And I came from school knowing that I had to go to training after, and I came excited, and I came to his office, and he said, "Sorry, I'm not gonna be able to take you today. I'm busy." And I was like, "Crap! How am I gonna get there?" Because it was in the other side of town. And he's like, "This is what you're gonna do. Here's $20. You're gonna take the train. You take the bus." So he wrote on the piece of paper for me. It's like, "You have to take this bus. You have to take this train." And I'll never forget that I'm walking to practice that day. I said, "I'm not gonna make it." And I was probably 14, 13, 14 years old.
Hmm.
And I took the train. It gives me goosebumps to say, because I don't have my dad, and he
Yeah.
was a main
Wow.
influential for me. But I took the train, and in that train I saw everything. I saw people selling stuff. I saw people asking for money. You know how it is in Jamaica. I'm sure it's the same that it is in Brazil, but in a much smaller thing. So you multiply Jamaica by 50, it's what we had. I saw families asking for money. I saw families struggling. I saw in that train ride going in. Then I got off, and I saw on the train station, downtown train stations are horrible all over the world. You know that. You see drugs, you see everything on that 2 hour train ride. Then I go to practice. Guess who's at practice?
With that,
My dad.
you
That
created.
bastard drove over there in a nice AC and everything, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't get. I fixed the stuff that I had to do at work, and I wanted to come see your practice." But he taught me the best lesson of my life of seeing everything, because the kids that I was gonna play against,
They do that every day.
that's what they did. How am I gonna put the same effort here
Mhm.
if I drove my AC, you know,
Different.
of the kid that is we used to
Built that
say
way.
you used to say that the 50-50 is for a plate of food, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that was one of the best lessons I've ever gotten.
Yeah,
And
that's a great way. That's actually one of the best ones I've heard because our kids don't have that,
and
and so
and
we
and
got to
then,
create it. And I tell my staff every day, don't we're not here to just like put kids into tough situations every day and all this, but you gotta feed them because they're not getting it in their environment. And I grew up in a different mindset than you had, and we all know that. But you know, I I wouldn't change a thing. I grew up.
it made us better. We wouldn't be able to
Appreciative,
survive this world if we
appreciative.
didn't go there.
You're more appreciative.
Yeah,
You're more
absolutely.
appreciative, and you're more understanding of things. And you can deal with things. And like I said, things just fall off my shoulder now because I've been every circle, and you kind of just like, oh, they'll come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you gotta keep grinding, and competition. I love it, man. It's important. It's humbling. It pushes you. It makes you understand where you are as an individual and as a club, and it realizes what you're doing is right versus wrong. So we embrace the competition that comes around, but sometimes it's just too much people in the circle, and it's tough to move around, and we need to figure out how we can decentralize things a little bit, to make it even for everybody to have an opportunity to develop if you're doing the right things,
Mhm.
unfortunately you got people out there that are doing the right things and are still having a little bit of success, and people are buying into things that doesn't pan out,
Yeah, but
and
I think those eventually they'll
oh,
catch up.
exactly, they don't pan out.
Eventually they'll pan out. You
But
know.
but you just lost time, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
but
It's
then
a learning lessons, right?
yeah, but then what are you gonna do? Like
No, yeah, you can't do anything.
we need to make the decisions for. I
Hmm.
had a meeting here last week with with Chamonix for SAI
Oh, it's
Academy.
yeah,
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 love the girl, love the program, and I
yeah.
think it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
But it's just now again. Let me take my head off of an academy owner and talk about a parent. How am I going to take out my kid out of high school, right? It's a risky move. And I told Shamini, like in the beginning of the podcast, I was 0% sold. Now I am 30% sold, and I think that she brought up some good points. Very smart girl. Um, but it's a decision that you can't go back on. Like you say, you lost time.
Yeah.
What do you do? You take your kid, and then when the kid, for example, is 17, he breaks his knee, can't play soccer anymore. How do I make up that 5 years of social, of
Yeah,
everything,
the
right?
thing that I mean, obviously they're trying to create an environment where it's conducive to the game. They're around the game a little bit more, and tip my hat off to them. What they're trying to do, but yeah, you're pulling your kids out of an environment where sometimes it's not even it's false. You know what I
Uh,
mean?
and
You
we
know?
can't we can't we can't say it's right or wrong until it happens.
Yeah, and
You've seen
because
the full circle, and
I
every
mean,
full circle is different.
kids going to high school and dealing with different socioeconomical kids, and the diversity and all this. That's the world. So high schools they'll do a good job of replicating what's out there, and you want your kids to be in that environment. That's what I would do. I mean, but each to his own, and and they do have opportunities like that to take them out of it. And you just hope that the game that they're trying to develop themselves, develop that part of it for them.
Yeah. So here, what do you want to tell us about what's the next projects or as everything? If you,
Well, the big thing now is inclusion, diversity, and inclusion for U.S. club. It's a big part of our game. We had an incident come up in our league that it was a racial thing said, and the kid got irated. And I remember back in my 1981 in West Texas, going through a lot of that, as a player. Um, and we had to punish the kid, right? But what provoked it? So we're still lacking a lot of education on that, and it has to come from the top down. So we do a lot of the coaches do a lot of background checks and all that, and videos. We need to create a section for that teaches us to handle
Mhm.
these situations and how we be more inclusive and how we deal with these things because it's still happening. So that's a big thing for me right now, the diversity aspects of it and trying to educate people how to deal with it. And because I mean, some kids they're just not around it, because of their environment that they're in. The game brings it to them, but they don't. How do they deal with it? So it's a topic that we need to really include into our education component, the background checks and the videos that we're sending down into younger coaches and so forth. It should be part of that package. So that's something that I'm really big on, and part of the game. And there's another thing. The outreach programs. It's. I think we look at it as and not to harp on Orlando City, they've created these little areas where they put these little in futsal areas. They create this, but they're not there every day. You got to plant people that are there that can bring kids to that. Because it's so easy to go and put something up in a neighborhood and put it up on your website. But what is it doing? Is it just for that day or is it for overall? So we got to do something better in these inner city kids and communities and either plant people in there that are part of that community. They're able to bring the kids to the little park or whatever you built and use the game and keep them off the streets, keep them occupied. So that's another thing for me. And Miguel Gallardo he was part of that project with Orlando City, and I'm trying to we talked about it like probably 6 months ago about see what we can do to help. So that's another thing on my plate that I want to get involved. I got put on the U.S. Coaches Foundation, where they go out and find funding for some of these projects. So that's another thing I want to get more involved with. But the diversity component is important to me. Because I just think we're not educated enough, and we need to make it more of a template as part of the education component. So those are the projects for me personally as a club. Um, we have to continue to get better in terms of um, not only developing players and all that, but do a better job of being more inclusive in some things that we believe in. I think sometimes we get distracted so easy because of what's going on the outside versus really sticking the course. I think we've done a fairly good job of saying, "Hey, we're the club that if you want to go to college, this is where we look at, right?" But you still have things in there that people, the pro, go this way and that way, but we need to make sure that people understand that's what our main focus is. And we have had that little CFK club have really produced a Dax McCarty,
Mhm.
that just was number 5 most minutes in the MLS now, and so we've had some success. We've seen it, but we got to just stick true to what we are and realize what we are. And if somebody else has something else, that's them. That's their identity. This is our identity. and we got to stick with that. And if you're coming to our club, you know exactly what you're getting into. So that's, we got to be a little bit more of a show in what we believe in, you know. So,
Great. And on those two social programs here, I want to make myself available to you.
oh, great, yeah,
Anything that we can do, we have the nonprofit here with the foundation here,
right.
Nona. We can help, and I'm sure that our
Yeah,
community.
we need to definitely, and you know, it should be more of a community, helping community,
Mhm.
because it does impact us, whether we like it or not. We got to go downtown. We got to go to those neighborhoods. They got great barbecue there. They got good Jamaican food there. I go there. So we're injected, you know, and we need to make sure that those kids are getting, not the, you hope as close to what our kids are getting in our community, but
Mhm.
you need to be able to provide for them there too.
So I'm making myself available and putting my club available. So whatever, and I have a really good relationship with Miguel as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
If you see something that we can do together,
yeah,
and
yeah.
because our competition should be on the field.
Oh, no doubt.
I believe that when leaders like this come around, and I've heard great things about you and crazy things about you, and I'm
Hmm.
sure you've heard the same. But
Hmm.
I it meant a lot to me that you took this invitation to come here. Like I said, uh, the better you are, the better I get, right? As my competition.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I want you
yeah,
to know that,
yeah, yeah.
and for us, I think giving back to the game and to this community that's helping us. I think I have my own opinions about what Orlando City is doing, and I don't agree with a lot, and I'm sure you and I share a lot of the same. But our legacy can be beyond that. It has to be something that we do together, we do as a group, and I don't have a problem in associating my brand with yours
Hmm.
to help people that can afford our
Oh yeah,
programs,
totally.
right? So I'm making myself available to you on
I
that.
appreciate that.
uh, I want to uh, get with you and see how we can support each other on the tournaments.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
have the Nona Cup, which is this year was a great tournament.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then the Alliance Cup with FKK.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think it should be, if we are truly, it's an opportunity for us to face each other. We need to make sure that we align something
Hmm.
that we can. Okay,
You
and
need to reciprocate.
yeah,
Yeah.
part of my plan this year is to face FKK
Hmm.
on the
Hmm.
field, respectful.
Hmm.
We're gonna do that, and then you guys come to Nona
I
Cup
do
and
the
we
same.
help each other. And we do that. And so my invitation is there. I played the Alliance Cup a couple times,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's a great competition, great tournament. And I invite you guys over to
Okay.
to the Nona Cup
Good.
as well. And I want to thank you. I think we've been talking. You've been the longest one so far. But when we talk about this game, I think we can be here all
Yeah,
night.
we keep it real, and that's good because it's reality. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And I think we've been around the game long enough where we've seen a lot, and experiences do help. You know, and that's the best teacher. And you
absolutely.
know, and you can't be selfish to not spread the word. You know, because
If we don't teach, what are we
yeah,
gonna do? We're gonna,
exactly.
I can teach you some stuff. Like we
Yeah,
were
right.
talking about social media, we're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah,
marketing and
yeah,
everything that's new into the game.
yeah.
And now I learned a bunch from you on how to deal with this.
Yeah.
So I think we can
Yeah.
bring a lot here. And what we've done 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when we were no longer both here, right? Well, we're not
Yeah.
going to be here anymore, or we're just going to be watching from far away. People are going to have to look back and say, man, that Brazilian guy and that Jamaican guy, they left some type of legacy into
Yeah.
this game.
You know, it's crazy. When I made the World Cup, the last person that put Jamaica in the World Cup was a Brazilian.
Yeah, Rene Simões.
Okay, so they brought us together on a podcast, and the first podcast we had it shut down because of the amount of people. I guess the website couldn't handle the crowd, and eventually they redid it, and we got back together. And I was in awe of him. You know, just him. You know, he probably wasn't a big time person in Brazil. At one point, he probably
One of the
was.
best teachers.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
One of
that.
the best teachers.
But when you start listening to him and you start just getting in his world because he talks a lot. If you you
Yeah.
know, he doesn't give you a little bit of in. So we kind of separated the podcast, let him talk, and then I spoke after. And he was just finishing COVID, so he was kind of getting out now. He wanted to, and he was going back to Portugal because he was doing some stuff in Portugal. But it's so good because in Jamaica, when we played Brazil in the World Cup, and the women, it was where some of my friends, it was like, who we gonna support, because Brazil is like the world heaven for us, and we have similar colors, so it's like people were wearing yellow, just who you supporting, so Brazil is a massive part of my childhood and my development, and we've all read the Nascimento book, and
Yeah.
as kids, and we know it's very similar, and we try to implement and duplicate and do everything that Brazil has done with the game. And I remember my first World Cup that I actually saw on TV, and it was '74, and I was just in awe of Brazil,
Mhm.
and obviously Holland was good, Germany was good, but Brazil was just different level back then. Just the game and the whole approach, and through my career, I got an opportunity to go down there and watch and see how they develop and see the culture, and it's amazing. Yeah, it really is amazing to see how
Yeah, definitely, definitely a machine to
different
develop players.
different
It's
different different and it's good to see the culture, more so than anything else when I went down there, and it's rewarding though, because the favelas, I wanted to go in there, I wanted to see what this whole thing was, and we call it jungle in Jamaica. It's the same thing. It's not much difference, you
I went to
know.
the jungle in Jamaica
Yeah, you
to
did
eat
the
some
concrete
chicken.
jungle.
Yeah, I I told my wife because every time we travel, we want to go to where the locals eat.
Oh yeah.
Right, so I got a taxi driver and I said, "Man, I need the real jerk chicken."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
he's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yes, as long as it's safe, because I'm here with
yeah,
my wife." And
yeah,
and we went up. You see the Hasta man, and we stopped in the little thing and we ate the chicken. It was awesome, great. And when I
yeah.
told him I was Brazilian, then
Oh
forget
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Then
It's
I was
over.
safe.
It's over. They bring the ball out, or
Yes.
a coconut to juggle or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Hugh,
It's a
thank you
pleasure,
very
man.
much, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
respect,
Much respect, and I
respect.
appreciate
Good.
what you have done for the game and for you to take our invitation here.
Yeah,
Um, I am truly. It's from the bottom of my heart.
yeah,
You make me stronger,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
want to
You do the
look.
same.
I look up to you guys, and I wanted to compete with you. I want to be better than you on the
No
field, but I want to
problem.
learn as much from you that I can.
Yeah, yeah.
And this mic is always open for you. I think there's a lot of people that watches us, and maybe you should come here twice a year so we can.
It's a great idea. I compliment you on it, because I think people see us differently, and instead of just seeing us on the field, because we kind of let our guards down in it,
Yeah.
and just go at it, and the true meaning of the individual comes out. But I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just spent the last 90 minutes with my friend from FKK and US Club Soccer, Hugh. Uh, and also, thank you so much, Leo, for your help. Once again, the best in the business. So everybody, check it out. Check it out. Leo Cunha Media. He's the best, and he's here making sure that we get all this information for you. Once again, episode 6 from Nona Sportscast with Hugh Menzies. Menzies, or a Scottish name. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.